Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. I want to take a look at some guru stuff. Who's a guru? It came up twice yesterday in different association. The guru thing. Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna. And also to take a look at following the instructions of a spiritual master, what that means. I'm just looking at these things. I don't claim to understand perfectly, but I'm looking at them. And Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So, yesterday, I got a message from a devotee who was criticizing me. What else is new? I get criticized all the time. I mean, I'm so totally used to it now. It's like it doesn't even go in anymore. I hear it and I go, okay. Hare Krishna. So this criticism, I take it as an opportunity to go in a little deeper, to hear, what the person is saying, and to try to get more insight and clarity on what they're saying. And I don't take it personally. I can't take it personally. These criticisms they're bizarre. And the way they're presented are usually pretty bizarre. They're presented in anger and as a lashing out. So if somebody presents something in anger and lashing out, that's a little bit of an indication there that they have an agenda and that it's something they're dealing with. And it's not a kind of conversation where you can discuss together to uncover the truth. But they're coming in like a bat out of hell with and so Hare Krishna. So I got one of those yesterday, one of those lashing out, angry, and the gist of it was because I don't agree with them, or my way of following Krishna consciousness is a little different from theirs, and who I hear from is a little different, and how I hear from them, the way I do things is the way I do things. Hello? The way they do things is the way they do things. That's their choice. So, but they wanted me to do things the way they do things, and they couldn't understand or accept. I was a threat just by existing, basically, is what it comes down to. Hare Krishna. Someone who's actually situated nicely in surrender to the Lord, they're not threatened by anybody else practicing a little differently from them. Whether it's another religion or a different guru, or they're not threatened by it. They can accept, oh, that's what that person's doing. Oh, they're following like that. So they don't feel threatened. But this was angry attack. So the gist of it was, and this is how it was worded, is you're just like all those other Prabhupada disciples. They're all four-letter word, because they want to be gurus. You're just like all of them. They all want to be gurus. With 4-letter words mixed in. Well, number one, you can understand the spiritual master by their disciples. How they behave, how they talk, what they say. So you can understand a spiritual master from the disciple. So sometimes disciples will witness in this particular group of how they were saved, they were rescued, and they got like all these wonderful feelings that they never got before, and they're convinced. Okay, that's the person saying how they feel. But how do they act with others? Are they rude? Are they aggressive? How do they behave? So when this devotee came, and they're acting like that with 4-letter words and attacking me, and so I'm like, okay, I can understand about your spiritual master from the way you're behaving. You may have a nice testimonial about how great it makes you feel, but how are you acting? You know? So anyway, that was part of it. So I was looking at that and I was thinking, that doesn't make any sense what he's saying. It doesn't make any sense at all. You're just like all those other 4-letter word Prabhupada disciples, they all want to be gurus. You're just like all of them. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense at all. So I tried to reply nicely because I take this as an opportunity to understand the philosophy a little deeper, to go deeper into these things, And so what he came up with is that if you're serving Krishna, you're actually serving Krishna. It's just part of the deal. It's automatic. You are more or less in a position of a spiritual master of some sort or other, if you're actually engaged in serving Krishna. You don't have to try to be a spirit. You already are. Just like the mother and father. They're the spiritual master for their children. You don't have to try to be a spiritual master. They already are. The mother and father are automatically spiritual masters for their children. That's a type of spiritual master. Someone who introduces a person, introduced for the first time, this other person is getting introduced to the path of devotion and the goal of life and Krishna, the Maha Mantra, or whatever. They're eating a cookie that's been offered to the deity. They're getting a book for the first time. In how many millions of lifetimes someone is making a connection with Krishna? The person who connects that person is a spiritual master. You don't have to try to be. It just goes, it's just part of the service. It's automatic. That's a type of spiritual master. It's called Pravartmanadarsha, one who introduces someone else to Krishna. It's a Pravartmanadarsha guru. It just comes with the territory. If you're engaged in serving Krishna, you can't help but be some sort of spiritual master for someone else. Can't help it. It's not like you have to try to be. Actually, someone who tries to be a spiritual master is automatically not a spiritual master. Forget it. They're automatically disqualified. Someone who wants to be, they automatically disqualified. If a person just engages in serving Krishna, then automatically, according to their qualifications, their service, it comes with the territory. It just comes with the territory. And then it gets, within the heart. There's the guru within the heart. Chaitya guru within the heart. Paramatma. in the heart. There's different types of gurus. And then if someone takes formal initiation in a line of disciplic succession all the way back from Lord Brahma and is connected up formally, there's only one of those types of gurus for a person, the Diksha Guru. It's a formal ceremony. That's a type of guru. And usually in that connection, the disciple will engage in serving that particular guru in their particular service. Different gurus have different missions and different services. Some are more inclined toward Sankirtan, others are inclined toward preaching in colleges. Different types of gurus have different fields of activity because they're individuals and they have their individual services. So usually a person takes initiation formally from a particular guru, a diksha, then they serve them in their, kind of like PhD, you work under a particular professor in his particular field of study and like that. Usually. You help him in his particular mission. Or maybe you get funds for him or help him maintain the particular preaching program he has, or whatever. Usually. So there's the Diksha initiation, formal. Hear from him, render service. And then there's instructing gurus. There could be a lot of those where they give guidance along the way. The original guru is Krishna, and he's working in different, these are his different representatives to bring people to Krishna consciousness. So, when the devotee said, "You're just like this other Prabhupada disciples, they all want to be gurus." No, they are gurus. They are gurus. One sort or another. Simply by engaging in service, it comes with the territory. The mothers and fathers are gurus of the children. The book distributors are all gurus. So they're introducing people for the first time to Krishna. And so on. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Actually, Prabhupada said all his followers, all his, they're all pure devotees. He said that. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Sometimes it's a little hard to see, but Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And I expect them to be completely perfect in everything they do. I mean, they're engaging in service to Krishna under the guidance of spiritual master, spiritual masters, initiating guru, instructing guru, engaging in service. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So it came up in a Zoom session last night about always staying in the association of devotees. That's to be protected from. Prabhupada had written a letter where he was very adamant about that. Always stay in the association of devotees, and Maya can't get you. You will be protected from the ill effects of this bad age of Kali Yuga. You'll be protected. So the question came up, well, what if you find yourself in a situation where you can't be in the association of the devotees? You're somehow or other you're in a situation where you don't have association of devotees. So the answer was to take shelter of the instructions. So I was like, well, that's easy to say, but so I asked the question, I said, instructions, there's so many of them. There's hundreds and thousands of instructions. Which ones? So the immediate answer was, all of them. And I was like, yeah, well, that, you're going to have to do better than that, because not all of the instructions are for everyone. Some are very specific, so, So then they kind of refined that, and it came down to, according to what your service is, those instructions pertain to you, according to your service. But I would take it down even further and say there's only 2 instructions, and everything comes from that. And it's always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Those are the instructions. And then how they manifest and how they play out in a person's journey of life, that's how the practical application of it all. The spiritual master is there, and the instructing gurus are there, and the scriptures are there. And so the basic instruction, follow the instructions, is accept everything favorable for Krishna, reject everything unfavorable for Krishna consciousness. When you start there, then always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. And then the purport, accept everything favorable for Krishna consciousness, reject everything unfavorable, and then you go from there. That's like the seed of it. Krishna. If a person doesn't even go anywhere further than that, they're okay. Always remember Krishna, I never forget Krishna. How can you go wrong with that, right? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. So we kind of got there. We kind of boiled it down after the initial response of, follow all the instructions. Okay, great. Hare Krishna. And then something else came up about when you see a devotee, you're seeing Krishna. So I was like, we have to do a little better with that too. Let's go a little deeper. So I asked, I said, any devotee? Which devotee? And then I was a little rascally. I said, when we see you, are we seeing Krishna? It was a little rascally. But, I want to see what he did with it, He's saying, when you see a devotee, you're seeing Krishna. So when we're seeing you, we're seeing Krishna? So, he's very shy and humble and, renunciate, sannyasi type. But he said, I kind of wish you hadn't used that particular example. But then he went on to say, yes. He said, because of representing Krishna. Representing Krishna, we're studying this Bhagavatam, and so representing Krishna. He says, like an ambassador from the country, another country. You have a connection with the other country because of the ambassador. So, yes. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. You have a connection. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. But then he went on to say, but any devotee. And there we go again, with anyone who's engaged in the service of the Lord. You can see Krishna there. Actually, you can see Krishna everywhere, because Super Soul, even people who are sound asleep walking around out there thinking the goal of life is just to, enjoy the senses and everything, like animalistic kind of mentality, you see Krishna there too, because Super Soul is within the heart. But within the devotee, you can see Krishna because they're trying to serve Krishna. And they want their desires to become conscious of Krishna. So, any devotee, actually anyone, everyone, everything, then it gets really good, it's like, and all of a sudden Krishna's everywhere. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. So that was a lot of fun, and just to think about this guru issue, it's not that someone has to become the guru. Krishna is the guru, right? And there are a lot of other gurus, and we can learn something from everyone. Krishna can work through anyone. We can learn something from everyone. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And it's not a contest who's going to be the guru. Oh, Krishna. You engage in devotional service, automatically it will be seen what kind of guru you are. And also, it can be understood by your followers, by their behavior, what kind of guru you are. Like, there's one guru who's teaching that you don't have to follow anything. You can eat anything. You can eat meat, fish, and eggs. It doesn't matter. You can take intoxicants, drink beer, smoke pot. It doesn't matter. And sex, no problem. If you want some sex, you find somebody, get a partner. Or if you have to, just masturbate. It doesn't matter. It's just sex. It's preaching like this. And that the only thing you need is just to accept him as your guru. And you can do anything. It doesn't matter. Because I'm the guru. So, Hare Krishna. What I'm looking at is that some people won't be able to follow anything. They won't be able to give up sex activities. They won't be able to. Some people, they can't give up intoxicants. They just can't do it. Some people, they're still going to eat eggs for breakfast or go out and get a hamburger every now and then. I mean, they just can't help it. Some people. So, this is the guru for them. Because there is Krishna there, somewhere in the mix. So this is, you can see by, the types of people that are taking shelter there. So this is their guru. But their behavior is very uncivilized and rude, and you can't really have a conversation with them. Access to their intellectual function is, you don't know where it is. So, there's all kinds of gurus. Hare Krishna! Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri. Someone once said to me, again, another criticism, that I can see you're not very advanced because you don't have any followers. You don't have a whole lot of followers. You're not very advanced. So, Krishna. Okay. She's right. That devotee was right. I'm not very advanced, but it's not because I don't have a lot of followers. It's because I'm not very advanced. It's very funny, to these criticisms that come. It's like, wow, Hare Krishna. I get yelled at, True. Okay. This is Bhagavad Gita, translated with commentaries, Bhagavad Gita as it is, by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. who is known by his service to be a great empowered spiritual master, acharya. He's known by his service, his activities, his behavior, his speaking, his teaching, and his dealings with others, and by his disciples. Hare Krishna. So this is the three modes of material nature, text 17. This is a chapter that's going into how the three modes influence the activities of the conditioned living entities who have material bodies made of the elements of material nature. They're covered by these elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. Those are the gross elements. Mind, intelligence, and false ego, subtle elements, covering the pure spirit soul, who's said to be more brilliant and effulgent than millions of suns if they rose in the sky at once. So it's very, very dark being covered, that kind of brilliance being covered by these material elements. And the modes influence how the behavior of someone who's covered, not just people, but animals, plants, trees, all the different life forms, are living entities that are spirit souls, more brilliant than millions of suns, but now covered in a covered, conditioned state, covered over. Thick layers, each layer 10 times thicker than the next, and the earth being the thickest layer, and then water, and then fire, and then air, and then ether. Medium sound travels in is also a gross layer, and then the subtle layers, the mind, the intelligence, they're all, it's 10 times thicker, and the thickest one is the covering of earth. It contains all the others. So, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Om Aginati Mirandasya Ganagana Salakaya Chakshun Militamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master has opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my most humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Satpat Sanjayate Jnanam Rajaso Loba Evacha Pramada Moha Tamaso Bhavato Jnanam Evacha. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, grief develops. And from the mode of ignorance, foolishness, madness, and illusion develop. I think we read this yesterday, so I'm going to go to the next verse. Urdvam gachanti satvasta madhye chishtanti rajasa jaganya gunavritista ado gachanti tamasa. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. Purport. In this verse, the results of actions in the three modes of material nature are more explicitly set forth. There is an upper planetary system consisting of the heavenly planets, where everyone is highly elevated. According to the degree of development of the mode of goodness, the living entity can be transferred to various planets in this system. The highest planet in this higher planetary system is Satyaloka, or Brahmaloka, where the prime person of this universe, Lord Brahma, resides. We have seen already that we can hardly calculate the wondrous condition of life in Brahmaloka. But the highest condition of life, the mode of goodness, can bring us to this. The highest planet. You know, here on this Earth planet, it's a middle planet. It's a planet of mostly passion and ignorance, but there's a little mixture of things. You can see like really opulent living, and then you can see kind of like middle class living, and then you can see really distressed situations. So the universe is like that too. There's you know, the really high class neighborhood, and then the middle planets, and then the hellish planets. You can see a little sampling of it here. Sometimes you can see where someone, a very rich, wealthy person lives. It's like fantastic, this big, huge house. They have riding stables and swimming pools and tennis courts. And it's just, you know, this one person. And it's maybe by the ocean, the view of the ocean. And it's so fantastic. And there's lots of servants. It's not like, you know, his wife has to like clean all the rooms, because there could be a lot of rooms in this house. But there's all these servants. Someone's cooking the meals. Someone is taking care of the property, cutting the grass, trimming the trees, growing the fruits and vegetables fresh for them for dinners, and like this. And he's having parties. He's inviting people over, and they're having entertainment, and they're spending time together, and they're laughing, and they're having a good time. So even on this planet, that kind of thing is going on. Well, this is the high-class neighborhood in the universe. This is the Brahmaloka. So then the mode of passion is mixed. It's in the middle, between goodness and ignorance. A person is not always pure, but even if he should be purely in the mode of passion, he'll remain on earth as a king or a rich man. So that's someone who is purely in the mode of passion. Is to be a king or a very rich person. So, but because there are mixtures, one can also go down. People on this earth in the modes of passion or ignorance cannot forcibly approach higher planets by machine. In the mode of passion, there is also the chance of becoming mad in the next life. Yeah, passion's a little dangerous. He says you can't go to the higher planets by machine. So, you know, you're going to go to the moon. The moon's a higher planet. All right, let's go to the moon. And you can't get it that way. Well, let's go to Mars. You can't go like that. You don't go to these planets like that. The lowest quality, the mode of ignorance, is described here as abominable. The result of developing ignorance is very, very risky. It's the lowest quality in material nature. Beneath the human level, there are 8 million species of life. Birds, beasts, reptiles, trees, etc. And according to the development of the mode of ignorance, people are brought down to these abominable conditions. The word tamasa is very significant here. Tamasa indicates those who stay continually in the mode of ignorance without rising to a higher mode. Their future is very dark. Bhagavad said that's the greatest tragedy, is that people miss the opportunity of human life. And because there's so much ignorance now, especially now more and more, this tamagun, the future is very, very dark for people caught up in this tamagun. There is opportunity for men in the modes of ignorance and passion to be elevated to the mode of goodness, and that system is called Krishna consciousness. But one who does not take advantage of this opportunity certainly will continue in lower modes. Prabhupada's mission is a preaching mission. He's not a bhajananandi, where he's just sitting and chanting Hare Krishna. He's a preacher, and his mission is to reestablish religious principles and to get this message out in a very organized, systematic way. Text 19. Nanyan gunebhya kartaram yada drastanupasiti gunebhyascha param veti madbhavam so digachati. Krishna, Krishna, Taimayan, Krishna. I think he needs a battery. His cuckoo's going kind of down. When you see that there is nothing beyond these modes of nature in all activities, and that the Supreme Lord is transcendental to all these modes, then you can know my supreme spiritual nature. When you see there is nothing beyond these modes of nature, goodness, passion, ignorance, and the Supreme Lord is transcendental, then you can know my spiritual nature. Prabhupada's commentary. One can transcend all the activities of the modes of material nature simply by understanding them properly, by learning from the proper souls. The real spiritual master is Krishna, and he is imparting the spiritual knowledge to Arjuna. Similarly, it is from those who are fully in Krishna consciousness that one has to learn the science of activities in terms of the modes of nature. Otherwise, one's life will be misdirected. By the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master, a living entity can know of his spiritual position, his material body, his senses, how he is entrapped, and how he is under the spell of the modes of nature. He is helpless, being in the grip of these modes. But when he can see his real position, then he can attain to the transcendental platform, having the scope for spiritual life. Actually, the living entity is not the performer of different activities. He is forced to act because he is situated in a particular type of body, conducted by some particular mode of material nature. Unless one has the help of spiritual authority, he cannot understand in what position he's actually situated. With the association of a bona fide spiritual master, he can see his real position, and by such an understanding he can become fixed in full Krishna consciousness. A man in Krishna consciousness is not controlled by the spell of the material modes of nature. It has already been stated in the 7th chapter that one who has surrendered to Krishna is relieved from the activities of material nature. Therefore, one who is able to see things as they are, the influence of material nature gradually ceases. So, without the help of a spiritual authority, a bona fide spiritual master, then he can see his real position. He can become fixed in Krishna consciousness. So who's the bona fide spiritual master? Well, Krishna, he is the spiritual master. And to whatever degree someone is representing Krishna and speaking Krishna's message under the authority of Krishna, then that person is like we were talking about last night. You can see Krishna there. And there can be many different spiritual masters, but that's what makes a spiritual master bona fide. Is that they're representing Krishna and not some other conclusion. The conclusion is to surrender to Krishna. Hey Lance, Krishna, Govinda. We're looking at gurus, what a guru is. Yeah, Hare Krishna. So right now I'm reading the three modes of material nature. Krishna. So, one who has surrendered to Krishna is relieved from the activities of material nature. One who is able to see things as they are. If he's relieved from the influence of material nature, he can see things as they are. And so the influence of material nature gradually ceases. Remember, the example they used to use all the time was like someone who's under the influence of the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. Their activities are being directed under the modes. It's like if you have a fan and it's plugged in and the blades are going around. So, with getting this knowledge in Krishna consciousness, because it's not just academic knowledge, but the devotional service knowledge, then it's like pulling the plug out. Hearing and chanting about Krishna starts to pulls that plug out. He's engaging in devotional, getting knowledge of Krishna. It's by devotional service I can be known. So hearing and chanting is devotional service. It pulls the plug out, but the blades still go around for a little while. Gradually, the influences of the material modes. Stop. Text 20. Gunan etan atityatrin dehi deha samud bhavan janma mrityu jiradikar vimukto mitam ashnute. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes, he becomes free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, disease, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. So that's the real plus here, that's the problem, birth, death, old age, and disease. And they become free from that. Wow, that's big. Become free from birth and death, the cycle of birth and death over and over again. Being born, getting old, having diseases, and then dying, and then being born again, getting old, being freed from that? That's a real gift. So when the embodied being is able to transcend the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar, even in this life. So that's liberation. Prabhupada's purport: how one can stay in the transcendental position, even in this body, in full Krishna consciousness, is explained in this verse. See, Prabhupada didn't just leave it there, liberation. He says, no, it's not, the goal isn't just liberation and some kind of impersonal thing. No, in full Krishna consciousness. He says that's what this verse is about. It's about full Krishna consciousness. The Sanskrit word dehi means embodied. Although one is within material body, by advancement in spiritual knowledge, he can be freed from the influence of the modes of nature. He can enjoy the happiness of spiritual life even in this body. And after leaving this body, he is certainly going to the spiritual sky. But even in this body, he can enjoy spiritual happiness. In other words, devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the sign of liberation from this material entanglement. Devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the sign of liberation from material entanglement. You don't have to strive for liberation. Just engage in devotional service, and that's an indication you're already on the liberated platform. You're already liberated. Now, the blades may still be going around a little bit, but the plug's been pulled out by engaging in devotional service. And that's explained later in the 18th chapter. When one is freed from the influence of the modes of material nature, he enters into devotional service. You get free from goodness, simply attached to happiness and elevation to fancy living on the higher planets. You're freed from that. Freed from passion, got to have fruitful results, and the dangers of slipping down into mode of ignorance, which is don't know what's what in the mode of ignorance, make all kinds of mistakes, eat all kinds of things, do all kinds of whatever, and slip down into the animal life next time. And then it's a long slog to get back. Once you're in a raccoon's body, boy, it's a while before you can get back to another opportunity. Arjuna Vacha Kailingais Tringunanetan Atito Bhavati Prabho Kim Achara Katam Kaitam Tringunam Ativartate. So now this is Arjuna. He's hearing from Krishna all of this about the three modes of material nature. Now Arjuna inquires, oh, my dear Lord, by what symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these modes? What is his behavior? And how does he transcend the modes of nature? Prabhupada's comment, in this verse, Arjuna's questions are very appropriate. He wants to know the symptoms of a person who has already transcended the material modes. He first inquires of the symptoms of such a transcendental person. How one can understand that he has already transcended the influence of the modes of nature. So how can you tell such a person from anybody else? How can you tell somebody's transcendental? How can you? The second question asks how he lives and what his activities are. Ah, this is a good one. Are they regulated or non-regulated? What are his activities? Is he regulated or is he not regulated? That's a good question. Then Arjuna inquires by the means by which he can attain a transcendental nature. That is very important. Unless one knows the direct means by which one can be situated always transcendentally, there's no possibility of showing the symptoms. Okay, so unless one knows the direct means by which one can be situated always transcendentally, unless you know how to be situated transcendentally, there's no possibility of showing any symptoms of being transcendentally situated. If you don't know the means to be situated transcendentally, you're not going to show symptoms of being situated transcendentally. So all these questions put by Arjuna are very important, and the Lord answers them. Oh boy. This is a big one. This is like, I think it's 4 verses all strung together. So, yeah. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Prakasam cha pravitam cha moham eva cha pandava na deveshti pravartani na nivritani kankshati udasina vadasino gunair yona vichalayate guna vartanta iti evam yovatishkati engati samatuka sukashvashta samaloštashma kanchana tulya priya priyodiras tulya nindatma samstiti mana pamanayos tulyas tulyo mitrari pakshayo sarva ramba parityagi gunatita sa uchate, or something like that. Translation by Prabhupada. The Blessed Lord said, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, so that's goodness, illumination, attachment, passion, and ignorance, delusion. So, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, nor longs for them when they disappear, he's indifferent. So if goodness, passion, and ignorance are present, he doesn't hate them, and he doesn't long for them, so he'll have something to do when they disappear. He who is seated like one unconcerned, being situated beyond material reactions of the modes of nature, who remains firm, knowing that the modes alone are active, who regards alike pleasure and pain, who looks on a clod, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye. So a clod, I think that's like a lump of dirt, or a stone, or a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is wise and holds praise and blame to be the same, who is unchanged in honor and dishonor, who treats friend and foe alike, who has abandoned all fruitive undertakings. Such a man is said to have transcended the modes of nature. So there's more. Krishna is going to discuss more in answer to Arjuna's questions, but he's starting with this. And Prabhupada's purport is, Arjuna submitted the 3 different questions, and the Lord answers them one after another. In these verses, Krishna indicates that a person transcendentally situated neither envies anyone nor hankers for anything. Doesn't hanker for anything, and he doesn't envy anyone. When a living entity stays in this material world, embodied by the material body, it's to be understood he is under the control of one of the 3 modes of material nature. When he is actually out of the body, then he is out of the clutches of material modes of nature. But as long as he is not out of the material body, he should be neutral. So if you're in a material body, you're going to be influenced somehow or other by the modes of material nature, but you don't identify with the material body or the modes of material nature that may be influencing. I mean, that's what I'm getting, is you're neutral, seated as though neutral within the body. He should engage himself in devotional service of the Lord, so that his identity with the material body will automatically be forgotten. When one is conscious of the material body, he acts only for sense gratification. But when one transfers the consciousness to Krishna, sense gratification automatically stops. It's a switch, either or. One does not need this material body, and he does not need to accept the dictations of the material body. The qualities of the material modes in the body will act. But as spirit soul, the self is aloof from such activities. So as long as there's a material body, there's going to be, because it's material elements, there's going to be material nature, which is the three modes. But as spirit soul, the self is aloof from such activities. How does he become aloof? He does not desire to enjoy the body, nor does he desire to get out of it. He's indifferent. Thus, transcendentally situated, the devotee becomes automatically free. He need not try to become free from the influence of the modes of material nature. So that fits with instructions earlier in the Gita of the yogi or the transcendentalist. He doesn't eat more than necessary, or he doesn't eat too much, and he doesn't eat not enough. He's just what the body needs. He doesn't sleep too much or sleep not enough. He doesn't do the extremes. It's just the body. What does it need? It needs to sleep, okay, so it's sleeping. It needs to eat, all right, so for maintaining the eating. They're not trying to eke out or wreak out some extra sensual experience. Hare Krishna. And thereby become distracted and forget the spiritual nature. The next question concerns the dealings of a transcendentally situated person. The materially situated person is affected by so-called honor and dishonor offered to the body. Yeah. You can identify with the body, and there's honor or dishonor, and that's me. I've been honored, or I've been dishonored. But the transcendentally situated person is not affected by such false honor and dishonor. It's false because it has to do with a false identification with the material body. He performs his duty in Krishna consciousness and does not mind whether a man honors or dishonors him. He accepts things that are favorable for his duty in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, he has no necessity of anything material, either a stone or gold. He takes everyone as his dear friend who helps him in his execution of Krishna consciousness. And he does not hate his so-called enemy. He is equally disposed and sees everything on an equal level because he knows perfectly well he has nothing to do with material existence. Social and political issues do not affect him because he knows the situation of temporary upheavals and disturbances. He does not attempt anything for his own sake. He can attempt anything for Krishna, but for his personal self, he does not attain anything. Such behavior, one becomes actually transcendentally situated. Hare Krishna. There are a couple more verses in the chapter. We'll pick it up later. Krishna. Krishna, 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 Hare Krishna. So, great American philosopher, what he has to say about Bhagavad Gita. Henry David Thoreau, he says, "In the morning I bathe my intellect in the stupendous and cosmogonal philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, in comparison with which our modern world and its literatures seem puny and trivial." Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then Ralph Waldo Emerson, famous early American philosophers, he says, "I owed a magnificent day to the Bhagavad Gita. It was the first of books. It was as if an empire spoke to us. Nothing small or unworthy, but large, serene, consistent, the voice of an old intelligence, which in another age and climate had pondered and thus disposed of the same questions which exercise us." Go, Ralph, go. Einstein also, he was big on Gita. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna